Next, we have Professor Carl Warren. And he graduated from the University of Minnesota Law School in 1975, after which he served for 15 years as a trial attorney for the Minnesota Attorney's General Office, primarily in the area of human rights enforcement. Since he joined the faculty in 1990, he has taught in the law school's civil practice clinic. From 1992 to 2014, he was faculty advisor to the law school's civil rights moot court, and in that capacity, oversaw the law school's McGee National Civil Rights Moot Court Competition and its related continuing legal and judicial education programs. Professor Warren has taught and been a frequent speaker on issues concerning race, civil rights, and the impact of prejudice on perception, judgment, the administration of justice, and the competent practice of law. And last but not least, we have Ralph Crowder Jr., filmmaker, filmmaker, public speaker, media activist, and cultural pundit. His creative film credits include Runaway Dreams in Cardboard Condos, Black Men of Homelessness in Downtown Los Angeles, Skid Row, No Child Left Behind, Black Children in a State of Emergency, a focus on African American parent advocating for issues of equity and accountability in public education. Memphis, a city rich in song and experience, a profile on the city of Memphis, the people, places, and things that make the spirit of a city rooted in music and its historical significance in the post-civil rights era. DJ Jazzy J, the South Bronx and the history of the birth of hip-hop. Hip-hop pioneer DJ Jazzy J explores the evolution of rap, music, and hip-hop culture within the Black community. An Evening with a Jazz Legend, Roy Ayers. Exclusive music documentary with Roy Ayers and band members regarding Ayers' significant contribution to jazz music. And lastly, Hands Up, Don't Shoot, Our Youth Movement. A documentary ahead of the curve with the murder of Ferguson, Missouri teen Mike Brown and the uprising of Black youth at the center of the story. The Hands Up Intergenerational Discussion Tour movement will be taking place in a city near you, so look for it.
Hands up, don't shoot. 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 Don't get justice. Don't shoot. Hands up, 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 don't shoot.
Ralph studied at the Virginia Union in Richmond, Virginia, the borough of Manhattan College in New York City, and majored in education and African American studies. So please welcome our And before we begin, I just want to sort of give you an outline of the way that we're going to run things today. It's an open forum. We have the panelists here. They're going to speak to these issues, but we do want participation from the crowd. The viewpoints are important, and we want to hear all of them. So please speak, okay? That's how this works. Sonia?
So thank you everyone again for coming. Really appreciate your participation in this event. So traditionally, images, videos, whatnot have been a huge galvanizing force in the civil rights movement, and more recently in social media, in seeing instances of over-policing and whatnot in minority communities. So, as I said, especially with social media, these videos, pictures are more widely accessible than ever. So, in your opinion, how has this novel form of police monitoring affected the way society at large views the need to aggressively police communities of color?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here. I usually don't write down notes to do any kind of speaking, but since I'm around some future lawyers, I thought I'd be a little more prepared with my thoughts. So in reference to this first question, while the conversation was taking place, I thought, wow, how wonderful would it be to have some kind of media in that grand jury right now in Ferguson, Missouri. Somebody with the camera somewhere to document the discussions and the people, the facts or the stories that are being articulated as truth. with the death of Mike Brown. Obviously, that is going to be under very tight security. Anybody who would attempt to do anything like that would certainly risk their livelihood, I'm sure, and a certain amount of personal freedom. But with that said, I mean, this is the call for people to step outside of their comfort zones and be willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. I think that the death of Mike Brown and the use of where we are right now and the creative use of media, especially being accessible in many different platforms online, is probably one of the main reasons we're here today. This use of media is particularly important with the black community specifically, because we don't have any institutions or any media, corporate or independent media, if you could say that, or we're not represented appropriately in the media. And so when you have street journalism taking place, and that when I use the word street, I'm not trying to discount the importance of that at all, but on the ground level journalism that's taking place from people who are concerned about the many different issues that they are experiencing in their day-to-day lives, I think that's totally important with the issues that we're facing right now. And so with the specific question, I would kind of look at the idea of policing in communities of color. And once again, I would narrow more specifically to the black community because of our unique experience in the American history. You know, a lot of us, not all of us, but the great majority of black people in America came here as property. That's a very unique history. And because of that, I think any interaction that we have with policing is going to be even more unique. It's one thought I was just thinking about up here is like we live in a time of either selective ignorance or poetic justice. You can look at what happened with Mike Brown and the courage that many of the youth stood up, to stand up, to risk their freedom, to risk potentially opportunities. And that was not done or led by lawyers, doctors, educators, police officers. That was led by the youth. You know, and that says a lot. And historically, that's what movements are led by anyway. But I think in terms of the selective ignorance or poetic justice is very, very interesting because 2 miles from that particular area was the burial ground of Dred Scott, which was the whole point of the 13th Amendment, and a decision, arguably you could say to this day, is not necessarily clear or not if black people are really citizens of this nation. I think that's something to really look into that law and how it connects to our criminal justice system, and how policing is applied in the black community specifically. I think there's a lot of interesting historical ties into that conversation that people really need to look at. People like yourselves who are passionate about these issues in terms of law, hopefully advocating for the greater good, for our connection to each other as human beings, to really go deeper into the history, because we are living history right now in And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Because I've been struggling, obviously, with this idea of citizenship. And I think it's a valid struggle because it's based on some real issues. I mean, blatant issues, yeah. We can say, how can we be citizens? And I'm talking about black people now. If we see this total difference of applied justice so many times that's caught on camera, this is not just what somebody says, but everybody, the whole world is watching it. And at time after time after time after time, it always works to the favor of the other end. And it's a really interesting thing to really even question, like, am I really a citizen? Are we really citizens in the real sense of the word? Because I think this just played out in front of our faces again. Not just with the Mike Brown, but I mean the media will show you examples every time. In the Ebola situation that just happened, the man who was in Texas, he had the guns drawn, nobody leave the house, don't do nothing. We got your whole family on lockdown, don't move. When it happened to the nurse, the first thing she said was, yo, you got me messed up. I'm a citizen of this country. We're going to have to do some legal stuff now. Because you're not gonna have me locked up in the crib. I'm gonna get on my bike and I'm gonna ride my bike with my boyfriend in front of the whole world, and I'm asking you to do something and watch what happens. Now, arguably, if you would have seen the brother in Texas do that, I don't know. There could have been some guns drawn and whatever. But I mean, this was another blatant example of this idea of citizenship and where we're really at in that conversation.